I think people that haven't been on this journey would find her behavior odd. Absolutely.
Yeah.
At times I do find it odd also. Her smile is very big and bold and joyful for sure.
They were a public couple. She has been on stage before in a very public way, in a way that she knows how to carry herself. And this may be something that she does want to be doing right now.
I mean, I felt like I want to just crawl in there with him. So I could totally relate. At the funeral home, they offered a videographer, they offered a photographer as part of like the thing. So, which I thought, no, that's strange. But, all those same things that she did, I did. And I felt that like down.
Welcome to Rebuilding Joy. I'm Tiffany Rampy, a remarried widow who supports the widow community through multiple means. Primarily, I offer group travel for fellow widows, and I teach how to use points and miles to travel for nearly free in order to add joy back into their lives. Today, though, I will be hosting a conversation with 3 other recently widowed women to discuss some of the actions and criticisms we've seen online of Erica Kirk. In the days after Charlie Kirk's death, the internet has scrutinized every move of his wife, Erika. From genuine questions about her behavior to blatantly awful criticisms, the internet at large feels like they have the right to comment. In today's conversation, I hope to provide some insight into the realities of becoming a widow and how it might lead to some strange behaviors in order to provide a narrative from those who have similar experiences. I want to be very clear. We are not here today to discuss politics. This panel is not here to support or refute the beliefs of the Kirk family or of TPUSA. Additionally, we are not here to discuss the theories around Charlie Kirk's death or the circumstances in which he died. Like her or not, Erica Kirk just lost her husband, her partner, and the father of her 2 children. That is an experience that only fellow widows can discuss in a way that would actually offer insight into what she's going through. I hope this conversation serves as informative for this situation, but also for your interactions with any future widows in your lives. First, let me introduce you to today's panel of fellow widows. Sarah is a widowed mother of 1 daughter. Her husband, Sean, passed away suddenly while on tour in Europe in August of last year. She's an owner of a small business and a hair salon in Northern California. She's navigating her new life as she continues to heal. Carrie was widowed in 2020 after the sudden loss of her husband, Jacob. She's a mom of an 8-year-old son and is repartnered. She's been on 3 Widows in the Wild international trips and supports her widow community by providing local resources and groups to those with recent loss. And finally, Abby lost her husband in April of 2024 after a long battle with brain cancer. She is a solo parent of 2 children, ages 13 and 14 years old. She's a psychologist and runs a group practice of mental health clinicians. Welcome, ladies, and thank you for being here today.
Hello. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like to start with each of you and just to hear from you, what was your initial reaction when you heard about Charlie Kirk's death, especially through your lens of being widowed yourself? Sarah, why don't we start with you?
I don't watch the news, put that out there, but this was such a catastrophic event that it definitely came across my feed in terms of my social media, the news break app. And so I was devastated for her as a mother, for her children. Anytime I hear of anybody losing their spouse, partner, whomever that may be, it is devastating, and it kind of brings you back to your day. And I was very sad for her, and mainly her children who are they're so young, they don't even really know their dad.
Abby?
Just to echo Sarah, I also don't really watch the news and was just inundated with this particular news when it happened. I immediately went to Erika and her 2 children before I even thought about really anybody else. Oh my gosh, I know exactly what that feels like, not to lose my husband in such a sudden, public, tragic way, but just knowing like when you lose your life partner, there's nothing else like it. And to also have to navigate parenting in the midst of all that is just tremendous. So just, compassion.
Go ahead, Carrie.
And I'll say the exact same thing as Sarah and Abby. And I was at work and it came upon my screen because I had the news open and I just couldn't believe it. And I just wept because I knew exactly how she felt at that moment. And I just felt so sad for her kids, for knowing what she's going to have to go through, like all the burdens that she's going to have to bear. And it just affected me a lot in the coming weeks as well. And to this day, when I see things posted um, about this, it very passionate and not don't normally voice my opinions about many things, but this is one thing that I felt very strongly.
Yeah, I think it's also pretty common for, at least it was for me, for newer widows to not pay much attention to the news. I think many of us go through a phase, however long, of survival mode, and taking in external news doesn't feel necessary at all. This one, I think, just kind of pierced through that desire to remain in your own little survival bubble. But yeah, I think that's very relatable. And I think this is the reaction of most widows, that they felt for her first. So what I've done for today is I've put together some videos for us to take a look at. I selected these videos based on the fact that I have seen these things come across my Instagram feed, and they're often with intense criticism. And I think what I'm looking for today is not just to defend her, but also to have as objective of a point of view as we can. Obviously, we will look at it through our lens. That's why we're here. But like to consider, okay, what of these things might even strike us as strange? Understanding that, yeah, like widows do strange things because we're, you're, like I said, you're living in survival mode. But to just have some conversation around some of these videos. So I'm just going to show us the first one and get your reactions. You can let me know if you've seen this one before or this is new to you. This first video was, I think, one of the very first things we saw come out from her about her et al.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I know. I love you. I love you. I love you. God bless you.
So Abby, maybe we can start with you. And obviously part of this is like they are in the public light, right? So that comes in here. But can you share with us maybe some reactions you had to that video?
Sorry, it was emotional. It was such an intimate moment. I didn't hear what the criticism was of this video. I don't know if we're supposed to know that ahead of time.
You don't need to.
It was such an intimate moment. It just felt very raw, very real. I imagine that she had zero awareness that that would be captured on audio and a visual. That was my reaction. It just brought me so back to the moment. I was with my husband when he died. I was with him when he took his last breath. I know this was not that moment, and it was so near to that moment. And I imagine this was her final goodbyes. So it was very raw for me.
I felt the same way. I mean, it took me right back to that day, seeing my husband in the funeral home. And I did all of those things, touched him, kissed him. I mean, I felt like I wanted to just crawl in there with him. So I could totally relate. I didn't have someone taking photographs which is a normal thing though, because at the funeral home, they offered a videographer, they offered a photographer as part of like the thing. So, which I thought, no, that's strange. But, all of those same things that she did, I did. And I felt that down deep.
I was a little sad for her that it was made so public. It's a very intimate moment, and I did think it was strange that it had to be so public and publicized for the family, not even her, but this is something that her children in however many years are going to have access to look back on. I feel sad for all of the things that happened on camera for their children, but this is, like you said, it's a very raw moment, and I felt sad that it had to be so public.
Yeah, I agree with all of you about all of that. And my reaction to this when I very first saw it was definitely like, why is this on the internet? That was her moment to have with him.
Not just her, but his family, if they chose to have their children there or not. But I'm glad that the children have not been seen on camera. I'm glad about that.
Yeah.
I think this is in part like part of the problem of our culture, that if somebody is a public figure for whatever reason, like their right to privacy just seems to be completely dismissed, and people's morality, I feel like, just goes out the window. Doesn't matter if he was such a public figure or not.
Didn't know him before this, but it seemed like his moral compass was very high. And then, like you said, the morality just kind of goes out the window.
Yeah. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
obviously.
I feel the same. I do feel the same way.
Right. Did anyone pause to say, oh, maybe this isn't, of all the things we can be putting out there, maybe this isn't, this
Right.
is not okay to do. Like, and I
Right.
feel like this happens a lot with people in the public eye. And
Yeah, and I think especially because, and again, I just want to be careful that we don't get political, but because he was a political figure, I think a lot of the criticism of them would come from the opposing view and not thinking about her as a woman suffering through something awful, but just sort of like the archetype of what they are and fighting against that.
It doesn't really matter if you're a liberal or a conservative. Like, at the end of the day, you're a human.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's not a side, it's not a judgment. It's just, you know, be a decent person. That's what it comes down to. It's just to think of how your words, your actions are going to impact other people.
So in the next video clip, this was Erica's first sort of public appearance. This is the first time she really came onto camera. She sat in the chair of her husband on his podcast and talked with his team about sort of the future of Turning Point USA and what they were going to do. And the general criticism that I saw with this moment and this recording and that I heard was that she seems fine. You know, she seems totally fine and she looks fine. And so I think it's important to have the conversation and think of it from our perspective, but also from the rest of the world's perspective. Let's watch this video and see, like, how does she seem and like how can we explain some of that? Or we'll watch and then discuss.
I gave assurance to people that Turning Point USA is continuing, and it is. I mean, we are so blessed to have more work than we even could ever dream of. I mean, it's beautiful, and Turning Point Action, full steam ahead, so powerful. You and him engaged in conversations about the show and about the podcast.
Well, it was. Hey, we're going to be doing about 5 more episodes a week now. So just tell the team and make sure that happens.
3 hours of this, 2 more hours of podcasting.
Yeah.
Like and he ran with that and the team ran with it. And to see the Charlie Kirk show grow from that moment until now has been so humbling and beautiful.
I just also want to say thank you to the audience, because in the days immediately after, I mean, we looked at each other a couple of times going like, what are we going to do here? And so many of you guys signed up to become members, members.charliekirk.com. So many of you bought.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Who wants to go first?
I mean, if you would see like the whole video, I mean, she acknowledges at some point that the excitement that she has is weird. And so I feel like, should she have summoned sadness during that time? It's something she's talking about, you know, her husband's work, his legacy. Should she be sad, or I mean, you can be joyful and also sad at the same time. So her expressing, you know, joyfulness and, you know, continuing this legacy. I feel like she feels connected to him and connected to the people that are at the table with her, and she feels comfortable. So, you know, it's hard to say, you know, exactly. Should she have been crying, you know, or is it okay for her to show some kind of joy? Because you can do both things at one time. And it doesn't matter if it happened a week ago or 2 months ago or 2 years ago. That happens forever.
I don't really understand that criticism, honestly. You know, just to kind of piggyback on what Carrie just said, I just think, you know, she is celebrating the life of her very vibrant, productive, kind of epic sized husband and trying to carry on the work that he started. And his legacy and honoring him. And I imagine she would feel a whole lot of energy from that, and maybe even feel closer and connected to him than she does at her house doing, folding her kids' laundry and making dinner and trying to get through those moments. Like, this is where I think you are celebrating his life. So I think that makes complete sense that she looked okay. I mean, you can never really, we as widows, I feel like we are holding so many opposites at the same time. We're trying to get through, survive. And she's for sure in survival mode in this short time frame. She'll look back on this time and she won't even remember the things that she said and did. It will be a total blur. But like, you're holding, okay, I have to live. I have children to raise. I have this incredibly large empire of the company, and I can compartmentalize my sadness. That doesn't mean the loss isn't tremendous or that it's gone away. That's such a short-sighted view that anyone would not understand that you can put it away and take it out when you need or want. You can control that.
I think people that haven't been on this journey would find her behavior odd. Absolutely.
Yeah.
At times I do find it odd also. I think she was probably riding a wave of support. I feel like maybe she's being guided to do certain, to show face and to show up, and her smile is very big and bold and joyful for sure. And I think she does have big shoes to fill, and she has a lot on her shoulders. And I think maybe she's just full steam ahead to just get through the day, get through the week, get through the month. And like Abby said, she's in a blur. She's not going to remember that half of these things happened. And again, I do feel compassion and a little sad for her for not really being able to take a little bit of time. It seemed like maybe she's not pushed into these things, but nudged along, like, do you want to keep his memory alive by doing this and this? The gentleman who said, let's amp up the podcasts to 5 podcasts a week. I find that more offensive than anything.
Right?
It's
like, does he know?
He has no clue what she's going through. And yeah, she looks fine, because also there is a part of her that has been trained as a beauty pageant to full steam ahead. And like Abby said, compartmentalize things in your life. The show has to go on. Things have to go on. Your life has to go on. All of our lives had to go on.
I actually just said that to a friend the other day. I said, my perspective on this video is that she's in shock. And it's like so right after he died.
For context, how many days?
Yeah, I meant to ask that also.
I think it was about 12 days maybe after he died. It was very, very soon.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, there are so many things that if people would have watched every moment of my life in the days after my husband died, like, you could have found me laughing with my friends. You could have found me giggling with the kids, or some of that like deep sadness reality takes a little while to sink in. If I'm being fully honest, when I watched it the first time, I was like, man, that's weird. Like, she does not look sad. And I was like, where's the sadness in her eyes? How you can like see it like in people's eyes. That was like my gut reaction, right? But then you start to read the criticism and I get super defensive. Like, no, this is normal. It's normal to have multi-faces and multi-facets of yourself that will all present themselves. But yeah, unfortunately, she's in the public eye. You do have to just put on a face. And I think when you're used to putting on a face, your body tends to default to the things you know. So the next one was at the very public funeral that was held, just sort of the way she came out onto stage. So take a look at that.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, so this one's a little tricky. I don't know what to say necessarily about this, but the criticism obviously is the hug and the way that she's interacting with the president.
Well, I feel like the whole funeral, that was all rehearsed and scripted. I think him calling her out on stage was not part of the plan, because I feel like she doesn't really know what to do. And then it's kind of awkward with the hug and then going in for the double kiss on each side. And then I just feel like it wasn't supposed to happen that way. And I feel like it was probably a surprise and she just didn't know how to react. And then it just got really awkward.
Awkward is a good word.
Yeah.
It was awkward.
It did feel like it was a little cinematic. The fireworks or whatever, pyrotechnics.
Gosh, I missed that.
Yeah, it wasn't in this clip, but
It wasn't in that clip.
When she came out, they lit off fireworks. Obviously not her choice. I'm guessing, not her decision.
And no, I'm sure so much of it wasn't her decision.
And then again, it's like, it doesn't feel like her life. It feels like, which I don't know what her life is, I guess, but it feels like somebody is bringing her to this. And I don't know, do feel like there is a part of her that likes the spotlight. I feel like she was in the spotlight. This is kind of going a little off this, but I do feel like she was in the spotlight and then she wasn't, and now she is again. I mean, for the funeral, she was obviously, her hair was done, her makeup was done for her. That is professional grade everything. And again, I feel for her being just put in this situation where she felt she needed to show face and be out there and give a speech at my husband's memorial. There's no way. I really wanted to say something. There's no way I could talk, period. I was a complete mess. I didn't even want to go, really, because I knew it was going to be so emotional all day. For her to be able to give a speech and not be a complete blubbering mess is a literal miracle. And I just found the funeral or memorial or whatever you call it just a little off-putting and way too public.
When she walked out onto the stage, I happened to be watching with my parents, and I just said, this poor girl, she is in an impossible situation. She's grieving the death of her husband. The entire world is watching her do it. She's not going to be able to do or say anything right in this situation. The pressure on her is so much. All right, let's take a look at a couple more. So for the record, with this clip, I haven't heard any criticism other than the outfit and the after moment, but I wanted to include some of her actual speech in the conversation because of the content of what she's saying.
There is a lot of symbolism in today. It's Wednesday, 7 weeks. And the more that I am coming to grips with the permanency of this nightmare, the more that I'm starting to realize and witness that.
Okay, so before we move on to the very controversial hug, I just wanted to talk about what she said there and what if that is relatable to you, or does that sound familiar at all?
She's thinking about the day of the week.
Totally doing that at that time frame.
Yes.
It's been 7 Wednesdays, and
I mean, my husband passed away.
Absolutely counting the days of the week, and then I was counting months, and that felt very familiar to me.
My husband passed on a Sunday, and every Sunday is still a little odd.
That's why it caught my attention, because I was like, oh, that's so relatable. She knows exactly how many weeks it is. She's like, today's significant. It's Wednesday. And how many people do you think were with her right away? Oh, it's a Wednesday. That must be a crappy day for her because that's the day he died, But she had it right there. Also in this speech, and I didn't pull this one up, but she talks about how it took her some time to sleep back in their bedroom together. And I know that's not everybody's situation, but to me, that also felt very relatable. Just her talking about coming to grips with the reality of this nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Which she's not gonna come to grips with that, ever.
Yeah, so let's jump to the highly controversial hug between her and JD Vance. I'm sure you've heard some criticisms about this one or could imagine what has been said.
A vice president of the United States took the stage in Oxford, Mississippi tonight. His appearance comes as Turning Point USA makes a
Okay, so that's the moment that's getting all the flack, obviously, is her hand in his hair. So,
and it's really 1 second, maybe.
It's so quick.
It's really fast.
The hug is seconds.
I mean, yeah, yes, it was intimate, and no more intimate than her hug with President Trump. Clearly, to me, it just indicated that she has a close relationship with these men who both cared for her husband and obviously care about what happened to her husband. I think everyone's making so much of it, and
I also think
this is like indicative of these are men that she has spent time with, probably had dinner with, probably were in each other's living rooms, like hanging out. Like it's just such extra scrutiny that I feel it's a little bit much.
I feel that when people or news outlets or whomever play the clip, they slow it down and make it seem way longer than it actually was when we're watching it in real time. It's split second. Like, it is not a long. She hugged Trump longer. If we're timing it,
and so much more intimate. Not intimate, in a sexual intimacy, but a closeness. Like she was like snuggled up.
Yes.
Like he was her father.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how a young woman would hug her father, who she has a close relationship with. I mean, I didn't think it was sexual in nature. I mean, I think that the JD Vance clip, she's wearing the tight black leather pants, that was really super criticized. I don't know if you're in a public light like that, maybe that's not the best choice in outfits. I think the white suit was, more appropriate, but I'm not
offended by her
wear down what she's wearing.
Yeah, I'm not offended by her outfit at all.
Yeah. No, I'm not offended either. I just think like people just need to pick.
Well,
pick.
Yeah, people need to pick.
And
I did notice that one of the early criticisms of this had a still image of JD Vance's hand on her hip. And when I saw that, I was like, why would he do that? And then when I watched the clip, I was like, oh no, somebody paused the video as he was raising his hands to hug her.
Yes.
And paused it right when it looked like it was resting on her hip. I'm like, that is so misleading.
Right.
They're trying to tell a story, I think.
Yeah. And it came on the heels of him saying at that press conference or whatever it was that he was saying, about he wished his wife would convert. And I think people just like made a narrative about it because, again, when you're in the public eye, people feel that they have a right to do this.
They're going to scrutinize, like we've all said, every move she makes, good, bad, indifferent.
Different.
Yeah. To me, I don't know if you ladies had this, but, we had like good family friends. And so after Mike died, that couple who were like our best family friends, they were my primary support people outside of my family. And when I would go over to their house, if somebody were to videotape me hugging my best friend's husband, I'm sure they would have been like, what is going on? Like, why is she hugging him so long? Because you're like a brother to me,
Right. And really by anybody.
And I know hand in the hair isn't a brotherly move, but she's being asked too much to make all the right moves.
I feel like we've seen images of her hugging Usha with the hand on the hair. I mean, it wasn't like unprecedented that she's never done that before, especially someone to the opposite. I don't know. I felt very defensive when someone posted something like that, and I saw it on their feed. I was very defensive, and I thought, how dare you? You don't know what it's like. Perhaps in a moment, she closed her eyes and she felt an embrace, and it felt good.
Yeah, she seemed very safe with both of these men.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so the last clip that I have to share is from her very recent interview, which just happened on Wednesday. She sat down with Fox News to do her first actual interview, not speech. And there are just some things she said that I felt, again, like maybe were relatable to those of us who have been through this. And then there is this moment that I'd like to pause and talk about where she's talking about the way she's talked to her children about their dad.
You told your children that Charlie was going on a work trip with Jesus. Are they still asking, where's Daddy?
Yes, my daughter continues to ask, but it's really sweet because I keep explaining to her a few things. And I said, if ever you want to talk to Daddy, you just look up to the sky and start talking to him. He can hear you. He's always in Robert. And I told her, I said, you know, Daddy is in heaven. She goes, do you think I could go sometime? I said, baby, we will all go one day. We will all go one day.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this specifically because I know in the widow community, in the groups, in the chats, that there is a lot of chatter and questions about how do you actually talk to your kids about what happened to their parent. And she has publicly said twice now that she's told her children that Daddy's on a work trip in heaven. So I have an opinion about that, but I'm curious about yours.
Well, I feel like her daughter is very young, so she has to simplify things in a way that her daughter will understand. And I mean, my son was 2.5 when my husband died. I never hid the fact that he died and he went to be with Jesus in heaven. But he asked the similar questions. Can I go there? Can we take an airplane there? Can we take a spaceship there? So I could relate to what she's saying. But I think maybe as her daughter gets older, as her children get older, she will probably explain it better.
I think it's what works for her and her life and the context of their life. Maybe he had gone on a lot of work trips before, and so the kids might have been used to him being gone, and they're firm believers in Jesus and heaven, and so it's just what works for her and her kids. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it given the age of her children.
Abby, you're probably the most qualified to weigh in on this one.
Well, actually, I would echo a lot of what Sarah just said, and I think it's so developmentally appropriate at what she understands. Like Sarah said, Charlie was probably gone a lot. I mean, he was gone on a work trip when he was killed. So that makes sense to her. And I think that we answer questions our children ask as truthfully as we can in a developmental framework. And this is what she understands. And as she matures and develops, she will at some point understand that he's not on a work trip, literally, but figuratively. I suppose he could be on a work trip in heaven doing the work that they believe in. So I actually think it's a lovely explanation. I think the way she described being able to talk to him hit me. My daughter feels my husband around her all the time. I feel envious that she can feel him and she knows he's there. I can't. I don't have that yet. And that she told her daughter that she could look up at the sky and talk to her father is really beautiful. And I think will really empower that little girl. So,
yeah, I think after looking through all of these things, I think most of us can relate in some way or another, right? And I think we've all sort of said and echoed that it's difficult for her, that she has to be in the public light. Now, I'm sure she would choose to be home and not be having cameras thrust upon her. She sort of alluded to that at some point last week in reference to the cameras, how they're everywhere around her, and she doesn't get a break from that. So I'm sure that's really, really difficult. So I just thought, if each of us could go around and say something that we would, like a piece of advice or something we found really helpful that other people did for us or offered to us, the way of trying to help those who are going through early widowhood.
I would just say be there, hold space for whomever you love that's grieving. There is no timeline. It's continuous. I would just hope for people to have just lots of love around them, lots of grace around them, lots of support around them. If this happens to your friend, your sister, your loved one, just be there, hug them, hold space.
I'd say keep showing up, keep showing up, keep asking, keep in touch, because there's so much. And
Even though so much, I mean, it's been 5 years for me, but just the checking in means so much. And, sometimes you do have bad days even after a certain amount of time has passed, but just keep checking in because it makes a world of difference.
I would say advice to people who have somebody going through this is, I like what Carrie said, to keep showing up. Also that it's such a shift. It changes, like early widowhood. And again, there's no specific timeline, but early widowhood changes and shifts as time goes on. And that doesn't mean the grieving stops. I feel like we just learn how to carry it with us. We make space for it. And just because I'm smiling and able to have dinner with friends and laugh and enjoy my kids doesn't mean I am not also holding a tremendous, like, black hole of loss, and that there's all of these unpredictable micro losses that happen along the way as life happens, like as the seasons change, as my kids have a life cycle event, as they continue to grow. Like, happy days are also really sad ones. And I think that's really hard for people to understand unless they've been through it.
I want to say too, like when children are involved at any age, your children will grieve at each stage of their life. And, as the remaining parent are a witness to that. And that is so hard. And if you do, and you keep showing up for those people, that don't forget, because, I've had people, kind of abandon me, because, oh, she seems fine. It seems fine. Where, I lay my kid down to sleep at night and he's still crying that his daddy's not there. That's the stuff that people don't see.
Yeah, I mean, especially because all of us are parents and have been solo parents or are solo parenting. I think people are really eager to support when you are clearly grieving and visibly grieving. Just to echo what you all said, I think to continue to support, because it is hard. It is really hard. So I don't know if every parent agrees with this, but like, I was thrilled when people offered to take my kids places or just to give me some time, whether it was an hour or a weekend or a night or whatever it was. So I could do something that was adult, because I think that's a really missing part when you lose your spouse.
Yes. Also, having another adult's perspective to give to your child. Sometimes I'm at the point where my child, she's 11, preteen, and she's really not trying to hear what I have to say. But I have a lot of other strong women around me that she will listen to.
Yeah, I find it really challenging to be the only voice and so much pressure to be the only voice.
Yeah.
Can I say one more thing, Tiffany?
Of course.
I think you said something before that I didn't necessarily agree with, in that she may be being forced into this. And I want to stand by what I said before, is that, they were a public couple. She is, as Sarah pointed out, has been on stage before in a very public way, in a way that she knows how to carry herself. And this may be something that she does want to be doing right now, to be connected to her husband, to carry on his legacy, that she feels energized and empowered by it. So, and I do think, just if that's true, that she wants to be doing this and no one is twisting her arm or pressuring her to do it, and that she's doing it willingly, that's also okay. Doesn't mean she's not grieving.
Yeah, that's a great point, right? And if that brings her any semblance of joy in this horrible, horrible season of her life, that really is what I'm about. You grieve and also try to survive and find things that are going to keep you moving forward. So thank you for pointing that out. All right, ladies. Well, I know that we were potentially ruffling some feathers today, although I think we had a really good, positive conversation on the topic. I think it's hard to argue with the things we said, basically. And I hope that some of this gets through to people who are quick to judge. And I hope that it gets heard in some little corner of the internet where people might take our perspective into consideration before slamming somebody that they don't know.
Yeah, at the end of the day, she's just a woman and a mom, and she lost her husband. And regardless of what you believe about certain things, just think that
she's lost her someone.
Yeah, and I think the best in humanity will give people grace no matter what their beliefs are. Like I said at the beginning, I'm really hoping that anybody who watches this can kind of take some of the knowledge and experience that we have to offer and use it when they are interacting with other people who have been through this. For me, I just hope people hold a really large blanket of grace around people who are going through this, because it is far more difficult than anybody realizes. And whether you look happy or you are hugging the wrong way, you are literally living a nightmare. Thank you so much for doing this, ladies. I really appreciate you. I know you took a risk to be here today, so thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Tiffany.
Bye.
Like and subscribe for more widow and travel content.